Welcome back, everybody, to the Miami Marlins franchise here on MLB The Show 23. We have made it to the end of July, and thus we have made it to the trade deadline. If you did not watch the last episode of the series, I highly recommend you do because it was by far the craziest episode we've had. I'll leave a card at the top right of your screen in case you missed it. But basically, a whole lot happened. There was a lot of good and there was a lot of bad. Emphasis on the bad parts. It was a real roller coaster for sure. So there are two things that are really going to stand out here. The first thing is that we went on an 11-game losing streak after the All-Star break. And we scored 14 runs in those 11 games. And over the last 6 games, we got shut out 4 separate times, including 3 sweeps. Not good. As you can tell by the score, it was a pretty crazy game. So after the 4th inning, we had trailed 14-0. Our offense had 1 hit, and we were getting embarrassed in the middle of a long losing streak. And then something clicked. We scored 21 runs through the next 6 innings, which is more runs than we had scored in our first 13 games after the All-Star break combined. Along with that, we rallied back and won down by 14, which is the biggest comeback ever in the history of Major League Baseball. Along with that, this is just the 3rd game in MLB history where both teams score a combined total of at least 40 runs. We only had 15 hits, but we drew 16 walks. We got so many guys on base, the Reds could not command the strike zone. I will say our pitching was not much better. Yuri Perez and Sixto Sanchez allowed 14 earned runs in just 3 innings, and the bullpen did not exactly light the world on fire. But our offense was obviously unbelievable after the 5th inning, after we had played horribly for 2 straight weeks. Cincinnati's offense was great as well. Even when we made the comeback, they were strong going through the middle of this game. The problem is their pitchers could not throw strikes. Kyle Harrison had a great start. They took him out early because they were up by so much, which is understandable. And then the bullpen was horrific. Alexis Diaz, the closer, had to throw like 75 pitches because they had nobody else left in their bullpen. Their bullpen management was so horrible that they had to basically burn Alexis Diaz's arm off. So a crazy game nonetheless, and I feel like that game is really going to help us get some momentum here and change the tides of our season. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like it's all sunshine and rainbows. The fact of the matter is we've lost 11 of 12. At one point, we were 10 games over 500, and we had the number 1 wildcard spot in the National League. Now we're the 3rd team out, and we've got some really tough decisions to make this year at the trade deadline. Our strategy over the last few years during the deadline has been trying to do a mix of buying and selling. Look at last year, for example. We acquired Gavin Lux from the Dodgers, a move that has really worked out so far, but we also traded away veterans like Gene Segura and Jorge Soler. And because of that, I feel like our team has kind of been stuck in the middle. I don't think we can really do that this year. I think we have to pick a set direction. We're right in the middle where we've been since the start of this series. And we either have to go all in on rebuilding or all in on buying and going for a playoff spot. Normally, a team who's 500 like this and the 3rd team out of the playoffs, I would say they should look to sell. Get some prospects, improve the farm system. But I think there are some exceptions to that, and I think this team can be one of those exceptions. We've got some players who are playing at an MVP type of level. We've got enough talent as is in the farm system already, and I feel like with our win against the Reds giving us some more momentum, I would like to go all in on trying to get a playoff spot, because in the MLB, if you can grab a playoff spot, anything can really happen. It's not like the NBA where the lower seeds lose pretty much all the time. Once you get to the playoffs in the MLB, it's a totally new game, and just about anything can happen. I think this year gives us a great opportunity to buy because there's a lot of really good high-end players on the trade block. Brian Reynolds tops the list, but he's not the only guy we're looking at. Luis Robert and Randy Arozarena are both very solid high-end options. Freddie Peralta, Casey Mize, good pitchers as well. I'm looking for an outfielder, and I'm looking for a starting pitcher. The rotation needs a major overhaul, and I'd like to add another bat, particularly in the outfield. But before I make any decisions, I do want to see some simulating. I want to make sure that the team is actually back on their feet after the crazy win against Cincinnati. So we're going to start by simulating this series against the Reds, and then we're going to simulate a couple of games here against the Washington Nationals. We're getting quite a few trade offers coming in. The Phillies offered us Joel Beltran for Nick Castellanos. I know I've been a little bit down on Beltran, but I don't think that deal is really worth it. The Dodgers offer us Brian De La Cruz for Michael Busch. I think De La Cruz is just better, so I don't really see a reason to do that. The Guardians would offer us Joel Beltran for Gio Urshela. Similarly with the Castellanos deal, I feel like this just really isn't good value. I'm surprised the Guardians want Beltran because they drafted a really good catching prospect a couple years ago. We ended up sweeping the Cincinnati Reds, and we scored 7 and 8 runs in those 2 games. Are the Miami Marlins back? It looks like it. We're getting some more trade offers here. The Royals would offer us Nate Eaton for Aaron Sabato. Again, I think we are going to say no to that one. Jesus Luzardo is back healthy. He broke his leg a little bit under 2 months ago against the Diamondbacks as we get another trade offer. Brian De La Cruz for Brian Rocchio. We're familiar with him from our Guardian series last year. I think we are going to pass. So with Luzardo back, we've got to send somebody down to the minors, and it's going to be Yuri Perez. I know this might seem a little bit surprising, but Perez has been up for over a full year now, and he has not been very good, flat out. He's only 21 years old. He's got a ton of time to develop, and I'm not worried about him for the long term, but he has not lit the world on fire. He's got to go back to the minors and figure some things out, but that doesn't mean Luzardo's spot is safe. Other than Sandy Alcantara and Edward Cabrera, the rest of the rotation has been very up and down this year. We ended up winning 1 of our first 3 games against the Nationals, so we're back over 500. We're still 3 games back of the final wildcard spot, but we passed Milwaukee as the Brewers have lost a few games in a row. So that'll bring us to deadline day. We've gone 4-2 since the big game against the Reds, and I still plan on buying. And there are some big names available on the block. The Orioles have just added Jackson Holliday. I don't really know why they would do that, but that's besides the point. In the last episode, we talked about some potential targets for us. In the outfield, I looked at guys like Alex Verdugo, Taylor Ward, and Cedric Mullins. If we want to take a potentially bigger swing, maybe have to give up more, but get a better player, there are some potentially intriguing options like Randy Arozarena, Luis Robert, and Brian Reynolds. Brian Reynolds is obviously the name that might make the most sense. He's at the top of the trade block. The Pirates have been dangling him in trade talks for close to a year now. He's a free agent at the end of the season, and of course, he is a great player. He has consistently hit for an OPS above 900. This year, it's a little bit lower, but still very solid. The thing with Reynolds, though, is that he's a rental. It's no guarantee he's going to be on the team next year, and if he is, you're going to have to give him a big extension. As we look at these trade offers, I don't really like this last one, but the first 2 are slightly intriguing. It seems like they're quite interested in Trevor Rogers as a potential trade piece. I want to gauge the interest here with Luis Robert from the White Sox, and I don't like the one trade that's on the table, but I am intrigued by it because they're only asking for B potentials. My thought here is if we do cave in and give them an A potential player, the rest of the package can be a lot smaller. Pause. Between Brian Reynolds and Luis Robert, I think I would actually prefer trading for Luis Robert. I think he gives us more long-term flexibility, and I think there's more long-term upside with him. I think it would also make some sense for the White Sox, too. They had the 4th worst record in the American League. They're really not going anywhere with their current core, and I think a rebuild would make sense. Luis Robert has been in the majors for 6 seasons now. He's never played over 100 games. He's never hit more than 20 homers. But when he's on the field, he is a very talented player. He hits for good contact. The power's been up and down, but he's good in terms of getting extra base hits pretty consistently. And he has a good glove at center field. It's really just about staying healthy and consistently, playing. I think a fresh start for Luis Robert would make a lot of sense. I think he has more talent and upside than he's really shown in Chicago. And I don't think he's the only player within these 2 teams who could use a fresh start. The White Sox rotation is not deep at all, and I think giving them Trevor Rogers in this trade would make a lot of sense. In 2021 as a rookie, Trevor Rogers was phenomenal. He was an all-star. He looked like a future ace. And then over the last 4 years, the numbers are just nowhere near as good. Within this series, his ERA has been going up higher and higher, and it's consistently in the mid to high 4s with a whip above 1.5. Now, despite that, he has a pretty high WAR on the year at 1.6, which is in the same territory as guys like Marcus Stroman, Roki Sasaki, Luis Garcia, and it's higher than guys like Luis Severino and Corbin Burns. So I feel like the White Sox recognize that Trevor Rogers is a fixable player who can live up to his talent somewhere else, similarly to what we think with Luis Robert. I think Robert is a little bit more talent than Trevor Rogers does overall, so because of that, we're probably going to have to add a little bit more. Another player who really needs a fresh start is Xavier Edwards. He's been with the big league club over the last month, and he has been god-awful. You can put a lot of the blame on him, I guess, for the offense being so bad, because he's replaced the injured Gavin Lux in the lineup, and he has been utterly abysmal. He was horrible last year, and he's been even worse this year with a WAR at negative .8. Despite that, I feel like his overall progression through the minor leagues has been pretty good, but he just hasn't gotten it done in the majors. So I wanted to see what else they would look for, and it seems like they'd want Kevin Alcantara as the final player. That's not something I'm willing to do. I think Kevin Alcantara is one of their best hitting prospects, so I would rather avoid that. They'd be willing to have Taylor Trammell as the third player instead, which is interesting because there's a lot of other good players who are way better than him who they would not take, like Robbie Jones and Yuri Perez, yet they would take Taylor Trammell, which is really odd, but okay. You do you. The White Sox are not known for being the smartest organization. Taylor Trammell's shown some flashes throughout his career. Last year, he was good in the majors. He's been solid in AAA this year when healthy. He did miss a large chunk of the year early with an injury. So I think this is going to be our big trade. Trevor Rogers, Xavier Edwards, and Taylor Trammell to the White Sox for Luis Robert. 4 players who could use fresh starts elsewhere, and I think this is a deal that could really work out for us. Luis Robert is going to be one of the faces of this team going forward. Miami has a very huge Cuban presence, so for us to have a Cuban superstar on the roster is really cool. Robert has had a solid season this year, and he's under contract for 2 more years, and they're both pretty cheap. If we had gotten Brian Reynolds, he might not be back next year. So to get a guy like Luis Robert gives us more long-term flexibility. With trading away Trevor Rogers, we do need to replace him in the rotation, and I would have gone out and gotten a starter anyway because our rotation is just not very good. I think one of the guys I talked about in the last episode who I would like is Tyler Mahle with the Twins. He's having a really good season this year. He's a free agent at the end of the year, so since he's a rental, he'd probably cost a little bit less, but I think this would be a good deal for us. The Twins are a team we've done business with before, and they seem quite interested in corner outfielder Ethan Wilson. I put him in the trade finder, and the other offers are, well, not great. They want Luis Arraez back. So I decided to do this trade instead. Wilson's going to be the big piece here. I do like what he brings. He's been with the big league club since the All-Star break. He hasn't necessarily lit the world on fire. And along with him, we'll be adding 2 other prospects. The first one being Joe Rizzo. At one point in time, he was a top prospect with the Mariners. He's 27 years old, so I guess the hope has kind of died down, but maybe Minnesota can get something out of him. And then Evan Fitterer, 24 years old. He's had a great year in AAA. He's a good piece. I really don't want to lose him, but I think it's worth it to get Tyler Mahle along with Jeff Hoffman. Once upon a time, Jeff Hoffman was like a really good pitching prospect with the Rockies. As you can tell, it has not worked out whatsoever, but he's having a pretty good season in AAA for the Twins, and I think he can give us some good organizational depth. He won't play in the big leagues, obviously, but I think he can be a good vet for some of the young arms we have in the farm system. He can help out mentor guys like Yuri Perez and Robbie Jones, who are currently in AAA. But obviously, the big piece of this deal is getting Tyler Mahle, a proven starter who's having a really good season and can give us some stability in the middle of our rotation, which we've really needed. I think we could use another pitcher, though. Maybe not a starter, but somebody who can start, like a Yusei Kikuchi, for example. We're going to make this deal with Toronto to acquire Kikuchi, who's been up and down throughout his career, but he's had a good season this year, albeit in a small sample size. But I think having a veteran pitcher like him who can start games if needed is going to be really nice, especially if we make the playoffs. We're also going to be getting Orelvis Martinez. He's a depth middle infielder. Martinez is a guy who I've wanted to get for a little while. When we played against the Blue Jays AAA team this year, he went like 5 for 5 with like 4 or 5 extra base hits. He's in the majors right now. He's playing pretty well, and he'll give us some depth in the middle infield with Xavier Edwards gone. We'll be trading away Devin Smelter, who's had a great season in the minors. Peyton Burdick is also playing very well in AAA, albeit in limited at-bats. Both Smelter and Burdick have big league experience. And then Travis Swaggerty, another guy who once upon a time was a really good prospect. Maybe Toronto can get something out of him. So we're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone here. The final thing I wanted to do was to get a veteran pitcher and depth within the middle infield, and we get both of those. Sixto Sanchez will be sent down to AAA with the addition of Yusei Kikuchi. I still have a little bit of hope left out for Sanchez, but it has not been good with him, put it that way. The injuries have really derailed what was once a very promising career. So let's take a look at our new lineups and rotations. Luis Robert will be hitting second against righties. It's also worth noting that Jazz Chisholm will now play shortstop pretty much every day going forward. Part of the reason why we've had Xavier Edwards play so much is because I did not want to have Jazz at shortstop, but with the addition of Luis Robert, we don't really have much of a choice. We know Jazz can play shortstop. I think he can handle it. Against lefties, Robert will hit fifth. I kind of want to have him behind all of our good hitters when we're against lefties because Robert will be easily able to drive them in as he's really good against lefties. Aurelvis Martinez will not start, but I do think he's going to play a lot, especially with Gavin Lux injured. Martinez is a good player. I really want to see him get some looks, and I think he'll be a valuable piece to the team. As for the rotation, Tyler Mahle will slide in where Trevor Rogers was. Jesus Luzardo will, of course, replace Yuri Perez now that he is healthy. We're going to have an open competition, though, for these final two spots between Luzardo, Gennaro Miller, and all these guys in the minor leagues as we figure out who will be our final two starters through the month of September and going into the playoffs if we were to make it. Yusei Kikuchi is also in that competition as well. If he performs, he will get an opportunity to start in big games late in the year. Before hopping into our next game, we would get some bad news down on the farm. Our number 2 prospect, Hitoki Nomo, has broke his arm, and he will probably miss the remainder of the year. He's going to go on the 60-day injured list. We'd get a last-second trade offer from the Phillies. They really want to give us Nick Castellanos. This deal is basically a bench bat for a bench bat, so in theory, it's not that bad, but Castellanos is going to be making $20 million next year, so I'm good. We're going to hop into this game here on the road against the Washington Nationals. It's going to be the highly anticipated debut of star center fielder Luis Robert, who will be playing and starting today for the Miami Marlins. This is game 4 of a 4-game set. The Nationals have taken 2 of 3. So the Marlins are going to look to split things here with the win. There's Aurelvis Martinez and Luis Robert both in the dugout, chopping it up with their new teammates. Luis Robert will bat 5th today for the Marlins, and he will face off against Mackenzie Gore for the Washington Nationals. Gore was a piece of that huge Juan Soto trade 3 years ago, which obviously has not worked out for the Padres, considering Juan Soto is no longer on the team. Gore has had a solid year, not great, but not bad either. He'll face off against Luis Arraez with 2 away. Arraez has really struggled since the All-Star break, but he hits this one well into right center field, and it scrapes over the fence for a home run, and the Marlins are on the board. They will take a 1-0 lead. Arraez with his 18th home run of the season to put Miami on the board here in the first inning. As we know, Arraez has well surpassed his career high in homers. He's continuing to make himself a lot of money with his impending free agency. Gennaro Miller will be getting the start. This will be Miller's second time where he pitches and hits in the same game. He's been very solid in terms of his pitching and his hitting, and despite being just 19 years old, he has been a welcome addition to the club. Luis Garcia will start this game off with a single. Garcia also debuted at a very young age, similarly to Gennaro Miller. Early base runner for the Nationals. Matt Vierling swings at an outside pitch, and Chisholm cannot make the play, so the Nationals will start the game with 2 early base runners. We'll see if they can get some damage here in the first inning. That'll bring up Joey Meneses, who grounds it to short. Jazz Chisholm flips it over to Arraez, over to Landry. Chisholm will be playing shortstop going forward on most days, at least until Gavin Lux gets back. Then the Marlins are going to have to figure out how they're going to play everyone. Here's Luis Robert, his first at-bat as a Marlin, and he strikes out on the high fastball. One of the few weaknesses of Robert's game is his plate discipline, and it kind of showed there. Woody Landry is now up for the Marlins, the talented young rookie, and he swings and misses at the fastball. Good inning for Mackenzie Gore. He strikes out a pair, and so the Marlins still lead at 1-0. John Kennedy hits a single into center. He's probably the second most talented John Kennedy to be associated with Washington, D.C. This John Kennedy catches baseballs while the other John Kennedy catches bullets. 2 away now for Brady House. He goes down looking on the changeup, and Gennaro Miller, the rookie, will make it out of the inning. Still no score for the Washington Nationals. They do have quite a few hits so far, and so that'll bring us into the third. Gennaro Miller is now up at the plate, 2-2 count, and he swings and misses at the high fastball. That pitch well above the strike zone. The Marlins seem to be lacking the plate discipline that they had against the Reds in the last episode. Yandy Diaz lines this ball high and deep into left center, and that one is gone into the Marlins bullpen. A solo homer for Yandy Diaz, his 10th of the year, and so the Marlins will extend their lead as they are now up 2-0. Good swing for Yandy Diaz to extend the lead for Miami. That'll bring up Nick Fortes, probably the only guy on this team who's consistently hit well since the All-Star break. He strikes out on the fastball. Fortes has passed Luis Arraez in batting average and is currently in place to win the batting title in the National League. William Simonite strikes out. Good pitch by Miller. Now facing off against Matt Vierling. He will get this one past the diving glove of Luis Arraez. Matt Vierling, I think, has like 98 contact against lefties. He's really showing it off here. And so the Nationals have the runner on base here for their best offensive player, Joey Meneses. Hits this one well into right. Santander will not make the play. Vierling on his high horse will score. And so the Nationals are on the board. It is now 2-1 off of an RBI double by Joey Meneses. So he's in scoring position here for Justin Kramer, who was drafted highly a couple years ago. Grounds out to second. Luis Arraez makes the play, and so that'll wrap up the third. The Marlins get one, but the Nationals answer back with one of their own. Into the fourth now, Jazz Chisholm draws a walk. He'll be the first base runner of the entire game for the Marlins. They do have 2 hits today, but both of those were home runs, so those weren't technically base runners because they didn't stay on base. Luis Robert swings at another pitch out of the zone for a strikeout. Not exactly a great start to Luis Robert's Marlins debut, but we'll give him time. He's probably getting the jitters out of the way. Anthony Santander strikes out on the 12-6 curve. Gore's had some very impressive pitches tonight as we move to the bottom of the fourth. James Wood looks to lay down the drag bunt, and it works perfectly. Wood, another part of the Juan Soto trade, is safe at first, and so the Nationals have a speedster aboard. Wood will look to steal second, and he is gunned down by Nick Fortes. The Marlins turn the double play as they get the strikeout and then throw the runner out at second. Good work all around from the Marlins as we move into the fifth. Gennaro Miller is up, full count, 2 away. And Miller hits this one high and deep into center field. Kramer at the track at the wall, and it is caught. The Marlins still with only 2 hits today, but they do with the lead as it is 2-1, and we move to the bottom of the fifth. Brady House leads it off for the Nationals. He checks his swing on the low changeup. Luis Garcia up with 2 away, and he goes down on the slider. 5 very strong innings for Gennaro Miller. We'll see if the Marlins look to keep him out for the 6th. Miami's been very conservative about his innings so far this year. Mackenzie Gore will be taken out for the Nationals. He'll be replaced by Bennett Sousa, 2.16 ERA on the year as he faces off against Nick Fortes, 0-2 so far, and he strikes out on the outside changeup. Good pitch by Sousa, and we go to the bottom of the 6th. Adonis Takadopoulos will replace Gennaro Miller. Miller's day at the plate will likely also be done. Again, the Marlins are just trying to be conservative with how they use him. That knuckleball has some insane movement. Good Lord. Matt Vierling strikes out. That'll bring up Justin Kramer now. My God, the movement on that pitch is ridiculous. Kramer will get back at him as he hits this one well into the gap, likely for extra bases. The Nationals drafted Kramer 2nd overall in the 2023 draft, and he ended up being a generational talent. Did not have a good rookie season, but this year, he's really having himself a great season. Yairo Munoz swings out of his shoes on the slurve. What a pitch by Takadopoulos as he makes it through the 6th, and the score remains 2-1. Ryan Feltner is into the game here for the Nationals, 5.65 ERA on the year. The Marlins still only have 2 hits the entire game, yet they're still winning. They also only have 2 walks, both of which are from Jazz Chisholm. He'll take his base, and Miami starts the inning with a base runner. That'll bring up Luis Robert. He has a couple of strikeouts so far today, looking to at least put the ball in play. And he certainly puts this one in play. High and deep into right field. It'll make it to the warning track, but it is caught. He hit that ball well, but not quite enough carry on it for the first out of the inning. That'll now bring up Anthony Santander up next. And he hits this one high and deep in a right center field. Kramer at the track at the wall. It is gone! A 2-run homer for Tony Taters. And the Marlins now lead it 4-1. Santander with his 26th of the year. He's no stranger to this area of the country. Of course, he spent the first portion of his career in Baltimore with the Orioles. Woody Landry up now, and he will go down looking on the low fastball. That pitch definitely looked like it was below the knees, but Woody does not get the call. And we move to the bottom of the 7th. Jorge Alcala will come out of the bullpen for Miami. 4.76 ERA. He is not exactly had a great year, although I guess he hasn't been horrible. James Wood will lead things off. He swings and misses with a low sinker. Good pitch by Alcala to get things started. That'll bring up Brady House now with 2 away. 1-2 count. And House hits this one well into left field. It goes off the wall. De La Cruz quick to get to it. A rarity for him. And the throw is just a little bit offline as House is going to be safe at second. So the Nationals now have a runner in scoring position for William Simonite. And he rips this one down the line and fair for a base hit. House will score easily. Simonite will hold it first. So the Nationals make it 4-2 off of the RBI single as they try to cut into Miami's lead. Luis Garcia up now. He pops this one into left field. De La Cruz is under it. He should be able to make the play, and he will. So the Marlins scored 2 here in the 7th. The Nationals get 1 back, and it is 4-2 going into the 8th. Hunter Harvey, another former Oriole, will check into the game. He will face off against Jesus Sanchez coming in off the bench. Sanchez really excels in pinch hitting opportunities as he rips this one into left center field, and it one-hops off the wall. That's Miami's first hit of the day to not be a homer. It'll be a double for Jesus Sanchez, and the Marlins start the inning with a runner in scoring position. That'll bring up Yandy Diaz now, homered earlier in the game, 2-2 count, and that'll be a called strike 3 as he goes down looking on the outside fastball. Nick Fortes is up next. He's had a pretty quiet game so far, but Fortes rips this one into right field. Back at the track at the wall, it bounces off the wall. The runner will score, that's Sanchez, and so the Marlins lead it 5-2. Big swing for Nick Fortes, and he will knock Hunter Harvey out of the game. Carl Edwards Jr., the veteran, will enter out of the bullpen for the Nationals. 4.68 ERA on the season. He'll face off against Jazz Chisholm, who has walked twice today, and he will get the hat trick, his 3rd walk of the game. Runners on the corners now, a huge opportunity for the new kid on the block, Luis Robert Jr. 1-2 count, runners on the corners, 2 away, and Robert strikes out again. Speaking of hat tricks, that is his 3rd K of the day. The Marlins do score 1, though. They now lead at 5-2, going into the bottom of the 8th, as they will bring in the lefty A.J. Puck, who's had a very solid season, 2.68 ERA. He's had his best year as a Marlin so far, facing off against Matt Vierling, who will draw a walk. So the Nationals have an early runner aboard for Joey Meneses, who crushes this one into left center field, and it bounces off the wall. Vierling's got some wheels. He will score, while Meneses will hold up at first. So the Nationals now make it 5-3. They have the tying run at the plate with nobody out. It's Justin Kramer who grounds it to third. The Marlins will look to turn 2, and they do. 5-4-3 double play. Good job by the infield to turn a pair. That'll now bring up Yairo Munoz, who hits this one well into left field, and that one is gone. A solo homer for Munoz. Good thing the Marlins turned the double play, or else Yairo Munoz could have tied this game up. A big swing for Munoz, and so it's now a 5-4 ball game. The lead cut to 1. Puck will be taken out of the game. He'll be replaced by Camilo Duvall, who will look to get the Marlins out of the inning against James Wood, who hits it hard over to Arise, who bobbles it. Close play at first. He got him. The Nationals still do score 2 here, as it is a 5-4 game going into the 9th inning. Aurelvis Martinez is up. His first at-bat as a Marlin coming in off the bench. He hits this one well into left field. Back at the track at the wall. It's caught. Good swing, though, nonetheless, by Aurelvis Martinez. Woody Landry up now for the Marlins. He's been pretty quiet today, 0 for 3. He gets a hanging pitch up in the zone. I know he liked that pitch, but he doesn't get it off well, and it ends up being a grounder over to second base. Brian De La Cruz is up now for the Marlins. He has a full count. Quiet day so far, 0 for 3 as he skies this one into right center field. This one's got a chance. At the track, at the wall, it is gone! Solo homer for Brian De La Cruz, and the Marlins will extend the lead. It is now 6-4. De La Cruz with just his 8th homer of the year. The power hasn't really been there for him this season, but it's good to see him getting under one there and hitting it well. I did not think that ball had enough to get out, but it did. And so the Marlins extend their lead, giving themselves some nice insurance runs. Jesus Sanchez now up, grounds it well over to short. Brady House will make the play. Not a bad inning, though, for the Marlins. They get another run across with the homer by De La Cruz. Camilo Duvall's already loose, so he's going to stay in the game as John Kennedy grounds it to Aurelvis Martinez, who's now playing short. Jazz Chisholm will move over to center, and Luis Robert will move over to right, replacing Santander. William Simonite with 2 away, singles into center. So the Nationals will keep the game alive. They'll get the tying run at the plate. It'll be the top of the order. The leadoff man, Luis Garcia, who pops it up over to short. Aurelvis Martinez catches it, and the Marlins win it 6-4. They will end up splitting this series against the Nationals in the debuts of Luis Robert and Aurelvis Martinez. The two of them combined went 0 for 5, but the rest of the team played pretty well. The pitching was pretty solid. Gennaro Miller was very good. The bullpen was a little lackluster, but it was good to see Miller perform. The offense did not get a ton of base runners, only 6 hits and 3 walks, but other 6 hits, 4 of them were homers. Arise, Diaz, De La Cruz, and Santander all went yard. So it was our power that really won us this game. The Nationals did a good job of hanging around. They got some runs late. In the 7th inning, they were able to drive one in with the single from Simonite, then the double by Meneses, followed by the Yairo Munoz homer, but it was not quite enough to get the job done. Their pitching was solid. Again, they did not allow a lot of base runners, but it was just the long ball that proved to be the issue for the Nationals pitching staff today. So we have made up a little bit of ground. We're 56-54. We're 2.5 games back of the final wild card spot. In the next episode, we're going to get through a large chunk of August, really dive into this playoff race. We'll see if the Marlins can make up some more ground. I hope everybody enjoyed. Let me know what you thought of our trade deadline strategy down below. Do you agree with the roster moves that we ended up making? Do you think we made the right decision on going all in for a playoff spot, or should we have been a little bit less aggressive and maybe look to improve the farm system some more? Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.